The emergency lights on the flagship cast long shadows across the command deck. Queen Zareth stood at the center of the room, her tall figure trembling slightly. She was tired. They were all tired. For 3 months, her people had been fighting and dying. For 3 months, the enemy had pushed them back, system by system, world by world. Around her, the bridge crew worked in silence. Their faces showed the same exhaustion she felt. Some had lost family members. Others had watched their home planets burn from orbit. Every person on this ship carried the weight of their dying empire. General Keth approached her slowly. He was her oldest friend and her most trusted advisor. His uniform was torn, and dried blood stained his sleeve from a wound he refused to have treated. There were too many others who needed medical attention more than he did. "My queen," he said quietly, "we have sent 17 distress calls. No one has answered." Zareth closed her eyes. She had known this would happen. The Velkari Empire had made many enemies over the centuries. They had conquered weaker species. They had taken resources from other worlds. They had been proud and arrogant, believing themselves superior to all others in the galaxy. Now, when they needed help the most, the galaxy remembered everything the Velkari had done. The silence was their punishment. "The Thraxi ignore us," Keth continued. "The Mordain refuse to even acknowledge our transmissions. The Council of United Worlds has officially declared our situation an internal matter. They will not intervene." Zareth felt anger rise in her chest, but she pushed it down. Anger would not save her people. "What about the Zephyr Collective?" "They responded," Keth said, and for a moment, hope flickered in Zareth's heart. Then Keth added, "They said we deserve what is happening to us. They said it is justice for what we did to the Polari 70 years ago." The hope died as quickly as it had appeared. Zareth remembered the Polari conflict. It had been before her time, during her grandfather's reign. The Velkari had invaded 3 Polari worlds, claiming them as colony sites. Thousands of Polari had died. The survivors had been relocated to less desirable planets. She had inherited an empire built on conquest and cruelty. Now she was watching that empire fall apart. "Show me the latest reports," she ordered. Keth activated the holographic display. The image showed the Velkari Empire as it had been just 6 months ago. 43 star systems, each with multiple inhabited worlds. A population of nearly 30 billion. A military fleet of over 2,000 ships. Then the display changed, showing the current situation. Only 7 systems remained under Velkari control. The population had dropped to less than 10 billion. The military fleet was down to 300 ships, most of them damaged. "The Devourers will reach the Velkara system in less than 10 days, Keth said. "This is our home system. If we lose it, the Velkari Empire ends." Zareth stared at the map. The Devourers were not like any enemy the Velkari had ever faced. They were not interested in negotiation or surrender. They did not want territory or resources. They simply consumed everything in their path. The Devourers were living ships, organic creatures the size of small moons. They traveled in swarms, eating entire planets, absorbing all biological matter, leaving nothing but dead rock behind. No one knew where they came from. Some scientists believed they were from another galaxy, drawn to this one by the presence of so much life. The first Velkari ships to encounter the Devourers had tried to communicate. The Devourers had simply eaten them. The next fleet had tried to fight. They had discovered that conventional weapons barely scratched the organic armor of the Devourer ships. Nuclear weapons worked better, but each Devourer ship required multiple direct hits to destroy. The Velkari had killed hundreds of Devourers. Thousands more kept coming. "We cannot win this alone," Zareth said softly. "We need allies." "We have no allies, my queen," Keth replied. "We made sure of that when we were strong. Now that we are weak, no one will help us." A young officer named Vex approached them. He looked nervous, as if afraid to speak. "My queen, may I suggest something?" Zareth nodded. "Speak freely." "What about the humans?" The command deck went silent. Several officers turned to stare at Vex. General Keth frowned deeply. The humans? Keth said. Those primitives from the outer spiral? They barely have functional spacecraft. Their entire fleet is smaller than a single Velkari battle group. Yes, sir, Vex said, but they are the only species we have not asked, and they have no history with us. They do not remember our past conquests because they were not part of the galaxy when those events occurred. Zareth considered this. She knew very little about humans. They were newcomers to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 20 years ago. Most species viewed them as insignificant. The Velkari had never bothered to establish diplomatic relations with Earth. Why would they? What could such a primitive species offer them? Even if they wanted to help, Keth argued, what could they do? Their technology is centuries behind ours. Their ships are crude. Their weapons are basic. Sending them a distress call would be pointless. Perhaps, Zareth said slowly. But Vex is right about one thing. They are the only ones we have not asked. She paused, looking around at her exhausted crew, and we have nothing left to lose. Keth sighed. As you command, my queen. Zareth walked to the communication station. The officer there, a woman named Lyra, looked up at her with tired eyes. Prepare a transmission, Zareth ordered. Route it through all available channels to reach the human homeworld. Make sure it cannot be ignored. Yes, my queen. Zareth thought carefully about what to say. She could not lie to the humans. They would eventually learn the truth about the Velkari Empire and its history. She could not beg too desperately, or they might think the situation was hopeless. She had to be honest, direct, and appeal to whatever sense of compassion or self-interest the humans might have. Recording in 3, 2, 1, Lyra said. Zareth straightened her posture and looked directly into the camera. This is Queen Zareth of the Velkari Empire. We are under attack by an enemy called the Devourers. They are an extragalactic species that consumes all life. Our worlds are burning. Our fleets are falling. We have fought for 3 months, but we cannot hold much longer. She paused, gathering her strength. We have asked every major power in the galaxy for help. No one has responded. We know that humanity is new to the galactic community. We know that our technology is more advanced than yours. We know that we have never bothered to establish relations with your people. But we are desperate. Another pause. This was the hardest part. If the Velkari fall, the Devourers will not stop. They will continue through the galaxy, consuming everything. Eventually, they will reach your worlds. Eventually, they will reach Earth. We are asking for your help, not just for our sake, but for the sake of all life in this galaxy. She took a deep breath. We have no right to ask this of you. We know we are strangers, but we are pleading with you. If there is any mercy in humanity, if there is any courage, we need you now, please. Help us. The recording ended. Lyra looked at her queen with sadness in her eyes. Message sent, my queen. It will reach Earth in approximately 6 hours. Thank you, Zareth said quietly. She returned to her command chair and sat down heavily. Keth stood beside her, one hand resting on the back of her chair in a gesture of support. Do you think they will come? He asked. I do not know, Zareth admitted. I do not know anything about humans, except that they are young and weak. But they are our last hope. The hours passed slowly. The crew continued their work, preparing for the Devourer's arrival. Zareth watched the tactical displays, watching the enemy swarm move closer and closer to her home world. She thought about her people, the billions, who still lived, who still hoped that somehow they would survive. She thought about the mistakes of her ancestors, the cruelty and arrogance that had made the Velkari Empire powerful, but had left them with no friends when they needed them most. She wondered if this was karma, if the universe was simply balancing the scales. 6 hours passed, then 7, then 8. No response came from Earth. Zareth felt hope dying in her chest. They would not come. Why would they? The humans owed the Velkari nothing. They had their own world to protect. Why should they risk their lives for strangers? My queen, Lyra said suddenly, I am detecting something. What is it? Ships, emerging from hyperspace. 8 of them. Keth moved to the tactical station. Identify them. There was a pause. Then Lyra said, her voice filled with disbelief. They are human ships. They came. The humans came. Zareth stood up quickly, her heart suddenly pounding. Are you certain? Yes, my queen. I am receiving a transmission now. A face appeared on the main view screen. It was a human male with short dark hair and determined eyes. He wore a military uniform that looked simple compared to Velkari design, but somehow fitting. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth spaceship Valiant, the human said. We received your distress call, Queen Zareth. We are here to help. For the first time in months, Zareth felt tears in her eyes. They had come. Against all logic, against all expectation, the humans had come. They had answered when no one else would. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of the ESS Valiant, staring at the coffee cup in his hand. It was cold now. He had forgotten to drink it while reading through the latest intelligence reports. The reports were not good. 3 more merchant ships had gone missing near the border regions. Pirates, probably, or maybe something worse. The Valiant was humanity's pride, one of only 12 warships in the entire Earth Space Navy. She was big and powerful by human standards, but Morrison knew that compared to the other species in the galaxy, his ship was small and outdated. Humans were still learning how to navigate the complex politics of galactic civilization. Captain, we have incoming transmission. Lieutenant Amy Collins called out from the communication station. She was young, only 24, but she was good at her job. It is on all frequencies. Priority signal. Morrison set down his coffee cup. Who is it from? Checking now, sir. Collins worked at her console for a moment, then looked up with wide eyes. Sir, it is from the Velkari Empire. Every head on the bridge turned toward Collins. The Velkari Empire was one of the major powers in the galaxy. They controlled dozens of systems and had a military force that could crush Earth without much effort. Morrison had never expected to receive any communication from them at all. Put it through, Morrison ordered. The main view screen flickered to life. A tall alien woman appeared. She had blue-tinted skin and large dark eyes. Her face was humanoid enough that Morrison could read the exhaustion and fear in her expression. Behind her, he could see what looked like a damaged command center with emergency lighting. This is Queen Zareth of the Velkari Empire, the alien woman said. We are under attack by an enemy called the Devourers. They are an extragalactic species that consumes all life. Our worlds are burning. Our fleets are falling. We have fought for 3 months, but we cannot hold much longer. Morrison leaned forward in his chair, listening carefully. Queen Zareth explained that they had asked everyone for help and been refused. She explained that the Devourers would not stop with the Velkari, that eventually they would threaten all life in the galaxy, including Earth. We have no right to ask this of you, Queen Zareth said, and Morrison could hear the desperation in her voice. We know we are strangers, but we are pleading with you. If there is any mercy in humanity, if there is any courage, we need you now. Please, help us. The transmission ended. The bridge was silent for a long moment, sir, Collins said quietly. Morrison did not answer immediately. His mind was racing. He thought about the situation carefully. The Velkari Empire had never been friendly to Earth. They had treated humans as primitives, barely worth noticing. When Earth had sent diplomatic missions, the Velkari had been dismissive and rude, but none of that mattered right now. What mattered was that billions of people were dying, and Earth might be the only one who could help. Commander Perry, get me all available data on the Velkari Empire and these Devourers, Morrison ordered. Commander Nick Perry, the ship's second-in-command, nodded and began working. Sir, we do not have much information. The Devourers are not in any of our databases. As for the Velkari, most of what we know is basic political and military information. What about the other powers? Why did no one else help them? Perry pulled up some files. According to our intelligence, the Velkari Empire has made many enemies over the years. They have a history of conquest and aggression. It seems like the other species are using this opportunity to let the Velkari suffer. Lieutenant Ben Carter spoke up from the tactical station. Captain, even if we wanted to help, what could we do? We have 12 warships total. The Velkari had thousands, and they are losing. We would be throwing our lives away for nothing. Morrison understood Carter's point. It made logical sense. But there was something in Queen Zareth's voice, something in her eyes that Morrison could not ignore. She was not asking as a powerful empress. She was begging as a desperate person trying to save her people. Lieutenant Collins, open a channel to Earth Command. Maximum priority, Morrison said. Yes, sir. Channel open. Morrison took a deep breath. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the ESS Valiant. I need to speak with Admiral Helen Brooks immediately. It is urgent. Within minutes, Admiral Brooks's face appeared on a secondary screen. She was an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been in the military for 40 years and had helped build the Earth Space Navy from nothing. Morrison, this had better be important, Brooks said. I have 3 meetings scheduled in the next hour. Admiral, we received a distress call from the Velkari Empire, Morrison explained. He quickly summarized the situation. They need help and no one else is responding. Brooks was quiet for a moment. The Velkari have never been friends to Earth, Morrison. Why should we risk our people for them? Because it is the right thing to do, Morrison said simply. And because if the Velkari fall, these devourers will keep coming. Eventually they will reach us. We do not know if that is true. This could be Velkari propaganda. Admiral, you should watch the transmission. Queen Zareth was not lying. I have seen fear before, and that was real fear. If we do nothing and these devourers are real, we will regret it. Brooks considered this. Even if I agreed with you, Morrison, I cannot authorize a military operation without approval from the World Council. That process could take weeks. Weeks we do not have, Morrison said urgently. Admiral, billions of lives are at stake. We need to act now. You are asking me to send human ships into a war zone without proper authorization. Do you understand what you are asking? Yes, ma'am. I am asking you to do what is necessary. Brooks stared at him through the screen. Morrison held her gaze. He knew he was asking a lot, maybe too much. But he also knew that if they hesitated, if they got lost in bureaucracy and political concerns, people would die. Lots of people. Finally, Brooks sighed. You have always been stubborn, Morrison. That is why I like you. And why you drive me crazy. She paused. I will authorize a humanitarian mission. Take Battle Group 7. Your official orders are to provide rescue and evacuation support to civilian populations. If you happen to engage hostile forces while protecting civilians, well, that is just self-defense. Morrison felt relief wash over him. Thank you, Admiral. Do not thank me yet. If this goes wrong, we will both be looking for new jobs. Brooks out. The screen went dark. Morrison turned to his crew. You heard the Admiral. We are going to help the Velkari. I know this is not what any of us expected when we woke up today, but it is what needs to happen. Sir, what about the rest of Battle Group 7? Perry asked. Contact the Ranger, the Guardian, and the other ships. Tell them to prepare for immediate departure. We leave in 2 hours. The next 2 hours were a blur of activity. The Valiant and 7 other ships prepared for combat operations. Crews checked weapons systems. Engineers verified the hyperspace drives, and supply officers loaded everything they could fit into the cargo holds. Morrison stood in his quarters looking at a picture on his desk. It showed his daughter Lucy smiling at the camera. She was 8 years old and lived with her mother back on Earth. Morrison had not seen her in 6 months because of his deployment schedule. He thought about Lucy, about the world she would inherit. If the Devourers were real, if they really did consume entire civilizations, then Earth would eventually face the same threat. Morrison was not just helping the Velkari. He was buying time for Earth to prepare. He was protecting Lucy's future. There was a knock on his door. Come in, Morrison called. Commander Perry entered. Captain, all ships report ready. We can depart on your order. Morrison put the picture back on his desk. Let us hope we are making the right choice, Nick. We are, sir. I am sure of it. Morrison smiled slightly. I wish I had your confidence. They returned to the bridge together. The crew was at their stations looking nervous but determined. Morrison sat in his command chair and looked around at the faces of his people. Some of them might not come back from this mission. He had to be honest with them. I know some of you are scared, Morrison said. I am scared too. We are going into a situation we do not fully understand, to help people who have never been kind to us. But I believe we are doing the right thing. The Velkari are not our enemies today. The Devourers are, and if we do not stop them now, we might not get another chance. He paused, making eye contact with several crew members. I will not order any of you to do this. If anyone wants to transfer to another ship, you can do so without any penalty. But if you stay, I need you to give me everything you have. We are going to face something terrible, but we will face it together. No one moved. No one asked to transfer. Morrison felt pride swell in his chest. Lieutenant Collins, open a channel to Battle Group 7, Morrison ordered. Channel open, sir. This is Captain Morrison to all ships. We have received a distress call from the Velkari Empire. They are under attack by an enemy that threatens all life in the galaxy. We are going to their aid. This will be dangerous. Some of us may not come back, but we are going to show the galaxy what humanity stands for. When someone calls for help, we answer. That is who we are. He looked at his crew. Collins, send a message to Queen Zareth. Tell her help is on the way. Perry, plot a course to the Velkari home system. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. Course plotted and ready, sir, Perry confirmed. Morrison took a deep breath. This was it. They were really doing this. 8 human ships against an unknown enemy. It seemed insane. But it also felt right. All ships engage hyperspace drives on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The stars on the view screen stretched into lines of light as the Valiant and her sister ships jumped into hyperspace. They were going to war. The hyperspace journey took 3 days. During that time, Morrison and his officers studied every piece of information they could find about the Velkari and tried to understand what they were facing. The data on the Devourers was almost non-existent, which worried Morrison more than he wanted to admit. Lieutenant Sam Rogers, the science officer, spent hours analyzing the limited reports. He was a thin young man with glasses who always seemed to be thinking about 3 things at once. Captain, based on the Velkari transmissions, the Devourers are unlike anything in our databases. They appear to be organic ships, possibly a hive mind species. What are their weaknesses? Morrison asked. Rogers shook his head. Unknown, sir. The Velkari reports say that energy weapons have limited effect. Kinetic weapons and nuclear missiles work better, but require multiple hits. So we hit them multiple times, Morrison said simply. When the fleet emerged from hyperspace into the Velkari home system, Morrison immediately understood how bad the situation was. The view screen showed a scene from a nightmare. Hundreds of ships were engaged in combat. Explosions lit up the darkness of space like deadly fireworks. The Devourer ships were massive organic things that looked more like enormous insects than spacecraft. They were covered in dark, chitinous armor and bristled with what looked like biological weapons. Some were as large as small moons. They moved through space in swarms, overwhelming the Velkari defenders through sheer numbers. My God, Lieutenant Ben Carter whispered from his tactical station. His face had gone pale. Morrison understood the feeling. This was war on a scale that humanity had never experienced. The battles in Earth's history, even the largest ones, were nothing compared to this, Captain. I am detecting 3 of the largest Devourer ships moving toward a cluster of civilian transports, Carter reported, his voice shaking slightly. The transports are full of refugees. If those Devourers reach them, how long until the transports are in range? Morrison asked, forcing his voice to stay calm. 15 minutes, sir. Can the Velkari military ships intercept? Carter checked his console. No, sir. The nearest Velkari battle group is too far away and already engaged with other Devourers. The transports are defenseless, Morrison did not hesitate. They had come here to help, and those transports needed help right now. All ships form up on the Valiant. We are going to intercept those Devourer ships. Perry, plot the fastest course. Yes, sir, Commander Perry said, working quickly at his station. Collins, hail the Velkari flagship. Let them know what we are doing. A moment later, Queen Zareth's face appeared on the screen. She looked even more exhausted than before, but there was shock in her eyes. Captain Morrison, you came. We did not think anyone would answer our call. We are here to help, Your Majesty, Morrison said. We are moving to protect your civilian transports. Can you tell us anything about those Devourer ships we are about to engage? They are bio-dreadnoughts, some of the largest in their fleet. They are extremely dangerous. Captain, your ships are much smaller than ours. I do not know if you can stop them. We will find a way, Morrison said with more confidence than he felt. Valiant out. The 8 human ships accelerated toward the Devourers. As they got closer, Morrison could see the true size of the bio-dreadnoughts. Each one was at least 5 times larger than the Valiant. Their organic hulls pulsed with some kind of internal light, and he could see weapon ports opening along their surfaces. All ships, spread out in attack formation, Morrison ordered. Do not let them target all of us at once. Commander Chen, take the Ranger and the 2 destroyers on the left flank. Captain Martinez, your group takes the right. Valiant will go straight down the middle. Acknowledged, came the responses from the other ships. Carter, prepare all weapons. I want nuclear missiles ready on my command. Weapons ready, sir, Carter confirmed. The Devourers noticed the human ships approaching and began to turn toward them. Morrison could see organic cannons swiveling to track the Valiant. Here they come, Perry said. Weapons range in 30 seconds. Morrison gripped the arms of his command chair. This was it. Humanity's first real combat against an alien species. Everything they had trained for came down to this moment. All ships fire at will. The Valiant's railguns opened up first, sending solid projectiles at incredible speeds toward the nearest bio-dreadnought. The rounds punched through the organic armor, creating holes that leaked some kind of fluid into space. The Devourer ship shuddered but kept coming. Missiles away, Carter shouted. Nuclear-tipped missiles streaked from the Valiant and the other human ships. Most species in the galaxy considered nuclear weapons barbaric and outdated. But humans had never developed the advanced energy weapons that other civilizations used. They had stuck with kinetic rounds and missiles because those were what worked. The first missile hit a bio-dreadnought and exploded with a brilliant flash. The organic armor tore apart, exposing the flesh beneath. The Devourer ship screamed, an actual sound that somehow carried through space. Morrison had never heard anything like it. Target is damaged but still operational, Carter reported. Firing again. More missiles struck home. The bio-dreadnought tried to return fire, launching what looked like organic projectiles. One struck the Valiant's shields, causing the ship to shake violently. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Shields down to 60%. Perry called out. Hull integrity holding. Commander Lisa Chen's voice came through the communications system. Ranger to Valiant, we have destroyed one of the targets. Repeat, target 1 is down. Confirmed, Carter said. The left flank Devourer is breaking apart. Morrison felt a surge of hope. They could do this. Focus fire on the center target. All ships hit it with everything we have. The human fleet concentrated their attack on the largest bio-dreadnought. Railgun rounds tore through its armor while missiles exploded across its surface. The creature writhed in space trying to escape. But Commander Chen's ships had circled behind it, cutting off its retreat. Captain, launching fighters, came the voice of Lieutenant Kyle Stevens, the commander of the Valiant's fighter squadron. We are going in close. Be careful, Stevens, Morrison warned. Always am, sir. On the view screen, Morrison watched as small human fighters launched from the Valiant and several other ships. They were tiny compared to the bio-dreadnoughts, but that was their advantage. The fighters darted in close, too close for the Devourer's main weapons to track them. They fired missiles and guns at weak points in the organic armor. Stevens led his squadron with skill, directing his pilots to target the same areas repeatedly. The bio-dreadnought's armor began to crack under the sustained assault. All ships fire on my mark, Morrison ordered. He waited until the fighters were clear, then said, Mark! Every ship in the human fleet fired at once. The combined firepower was devastating. The bio-dreadnought exploded in a shower of organic matter and strange fluids. The force of the explosion rocked nearby ships, but the Valkyrie transports were safe. Targets destroyed, Carter confirmed. All 3 bio-dreadnoughts are down. The bridge crew let out a cheer. Morrison allowed himself a small smile. They had won their first battle. Collins, contact the Valkyrie transports. Make sure they are safe to continue their evacuation route. Yes, sir. The transports are reporting all clear. They are thanking us. Queen Zareth's face appeared on the screen again. Captain Morrison, that was incredible. Your tactics, your weapons, the way your ships moved. We have never seen anything like it. We just did what needed to be done, Your Majesty, Morrison said. But this is just the beginning. I see dozens more Devourer ships in this system. We need to coordinate our efforts. Agreed. Captain, would you be willing to come aboard my flagship? I believe we should plan our strategy together. Morrison looked at Perry, who nodded. I would be honored, Your Majesty. Give me 30 minutes. The shuttle ride to the Valkyrie flagship gave Morrison time to think. They had won this battle, but only because they had surprise on their side and the targets had been focused on defenseless transports. The real fighting was going to be much harder. Lieutenant Amy Collins accompanied Morrison, along with a small security detail. When they arrived at the Valkyrie flagship, Morrison was struck by how damaged it was. The corridor showed signs of battle, with scorch marks on the walls and repair crews working frantically. Queen Zareth met them in a conference room. Up close, she was even taller than Morrison expected, at least 7 feet. Her alien features were dignified despite her obvious exhaustion. Several other Velkari officers stood with her, including General Keth. "Captain Morrison," Zareth said, "thank you for coming, and thank you for saving those transports. 10,000 civilians were on those ships. 10,000 lives you saved." "We are glad we could help," Morrison said. "But I need to be honest with you, Your Majesty. My fleet is small. We only have 8 ships. If we are going to make a real difference here, we need to work together." "I agree," Zareth said. She gestured to a holographic display that showed the entire system. "The Devourers are pushing toward our core worlds. We have been fighting a defensive battle, trying to slow them down while evacuating civilians, but we are running out of ships and time." Morrison studied the display. His military training took over as he analyzed the situation. The Devourers seemed to move in coordinated groups. "Is there any command structure we can target?" A Velkari officer stepped forward. He introduced himself as Lieutenant Vex. "We believe they operate as a hive mind, but we have not been able to confirm this. Our science teams were destroyed early in the war." "What about their weaknesses?" Morrison asked. "There has to be something they are vulnerable to." "Your weapons seem more effective than ours," General Keth said. "Your nuclear missiles especially. We stopped using such weapons centuries ago, but perhaps we were wrong to do so." Morrison had an idea. "What if we combine our strengths? Your ships have better shields and energy weapons than ours. Our ships have the kind of aggressive firepower that works against these things. If we coordinate our attacks, the Velkari shields protect the human ships while the human weapons destroy the Devourers," Zareth finished. Yes, this could work. They spent the next 2 hours planning. Morrison was impressed by the Velkari officers' professionalism. Despite their desperate situation, they were focused and intelligent. Lieutenant Vex proved especially helpful, providing detailed information about Devourer behavior and weak points. When Morrison returned to the Valiant, he immediately called a meeting with his senior officers. "We are going to integrate our fleet with the Velkari forces. This means taking orders from their command structure while also providing our tactical input." "Sir, can we trust them?" Carter asked. "I mean, they have not exactly been friends to Earth." "Right now they are our allies," Morrison said firmly. "And they need us as much as we need them. This is not about old grudges. This is about survival." Over the next week, the combined human Velkari fleet fought battle after battle. Morrison learned to respect the Velkari warriors, and they learned to respect human courage and ingenuity. Lieutenant Vex was assigned to the Valiant as a liaison officer, helping the humans understand Velkari tactics and technology. The battles were brutal. The Valiant took heavy damage several times and had to retreat for repairs. 2 of the 8 human ships were destroyed, along with hundreds of Velkari vessels. But slowly they were pushing the Devourers back. Morrison stood on his bridge watching another engagement unfold. Human fighters weaved between Devourer bioships while Velkari cruisers provided covering fire. It was working. They were actually winning. "Captain," Rogers said suddenly, "I think I found something. I have been studying the Devourers, and I believe they coordinate through some kind of quantum entanglement network. There are larger ships, what I'm calling hive nodes, that seem to direct the others." Morrison turned to look at his science officer. "If we destroy these nodes, the Devourers would lose coordination," Rogers said excitedly. "They would become vulnerable. Can you identify these nodes?" "I think so. There is one in this system, hiding in the asteroid belt. It has been directing the Devourer fleet this whole time." Morrison felt excitement surge through him. This could change everything. "Get me Queen Zareth, now." Queen Zareth listened carefully as Lieutenant Sam Rogers explained his discovery. The holographic display showed the asteroid belt and a large structure hidden within it. The structure pulsed with the same organic glow as the Devourer ships, but it was much larger and covered with strange biological appendages. "This is a hive node," Rogers said, pointing to the structure. "I believe it is coordinating all Devourer activity in this system through quantum entanglement. If we destroy it, the Devourers will lose their coordination. They will become confused, easier to defeat." General Keth stepped closer to the display. "How certain are you of this, Lieutenant?" "About 70%, sir," Rogers admitted. "I have been analyzing Devourer movement patterns for the past week. Every time there is a major strategic shift in their behavior, I detect unusual energy readings from this location. The readings match quantum signatures. Zareth looked at Morrison. "Captain, what do you think?" Morrison studied the display. The node was heavily defended. He could see dozens of Devourer bioships surrounding it, and the asteroid field itself would make navigation difficult. But if Rogers was right, this was their chance to turn the tide of the war. "I think we should hit it," Morrison said. "We have been fighting defensively for too long. It is time to take the initiative." "Agreed," Zareth said. "But this will be dangerous. The defenses around that node are substantial. We could lose many ships." "We are already losing ships," Keth pointed out grimly. "At least this gives us a chance to win." Zareth made her decision. "Captain Morrison, I am giving you command of the assault force. Choose your ships and plan the attack. I will provide support and reinforcements as needed." Morrison was surprised. "Your Majesty, are you sure? This is your empire, your people. I am just a human captain." "You are the one who found this weakness," Zareth said, "and your people have shown themselves to be skilled warriors. I trust you, Captain Morrison." The planning took 6 hours. Morrison gathered his officers and several Velkari commanders, including Lieutenant Vex. They studied the asteroid belt, plotting approach vectors and identifying defensive positions. "The node is protected by at least 40 Devourer ships," Vex explained. "Most are smaller fighter types, but there are 5 biocruisers and 2 bio-dreadnoughts." "Can we draw some of them away?" Commander Lisa Chen asked. She had been promoted to captain after her ship, the Ranger, had distinguished itself in multiple battles. "We could create a diversion," Morrison said. "Send a force to attack the Devourer fleet on the far side of the system. That might pull some defenders away from the node." "I volunteer to lead the diversion," said Captain Paul Martinez of the Guardian. He was a quiet man with steady nerves who had proven himself reliable in every engagement. Morrison shook his head. "No, Paul. I need your ship for the main assault. You have the best targeting systems in the fleet." He looked at Vex. "Could the Velkari provide the diversion?" "Yes," Vex said. "General Kith has already assembled a battle group for that purpose. They will attack 1 hour before your assault begins." The plan came together slowly. They would approach through the asteroid field using the rocks as cover. Lieutenant Kyle, Stevens and his fighter squadrons would go in first, taking out the smaller defender ships. Then the capital ships would move in, protected by Velkari shields, and destroy the node with concentrated fire. "What about the bio-dreadnoughts?" Commander Nick Perry asked. "They will be the main problem." "We focus on them first," Morrison said. "Take them out before they can organize a defense. If we move fast enough, we can complete the mission before reinforcements arrive." Captain Chen leaned forward. "And if reinforcements arrive anyway?" "Then we improvise," Morrison said with a slight smile. "We are good at that." The assault force assembled quietly at the edge of the asteroid field. Morrison had chosen 6 ships for the main attack: the Valiant, the Guardian, the Ranger, and 3 Velkari cruisers. It was not a large force, but it was mobile and packed considerable firepower. Morrison stood on the bridge of the Valiant watching the countdown timer. Around him, his crew worked in tense silence. They all knew how dangerous this mission was. If they failed, the war might be lost. If they succeeded, they might finally have a chance to push the Devourers back. "Captain, General Keth reports his diversion forces in position," Collins said. "They will begin their attack in 5 minutes." "Acknowledged," Morrison said. "All ships, prepare to advance. Maintain radio silence until we engage." The minutes ticked by slowly. Morrison thought about his daughter Lucy back on Earth. He had recorded a message for her before this mission, just in case. He hoped she would never have to watch it. "General Keth's force is attacking," Collins reported. "The Devourers are responding. Some of the defenders around the node are moving to intercept." Morrison watched his tactical display. About 15 Devourer ships left the node to join the main battle. That still left 25 ships defending the node, but it was better than 40. "Stevens, take your fighters in," Morrison ordered. "Clear us a path." "On it, Captain," Stevens replied. The fighter squadrons launched. small craft darting between asteroids with incredible precision. Stevens had trained his pilots well. They moved as a coordinated unit, focusing their fire on individual Devourer fighters and destroying them one by one. Fighters have cleared the outer defensive perimeter, Carter reported. We have a window. All ships, advance, Morrison commanded. Stay close to the asteroids. Use them for cover. The capital ships moved forward carefully. An asteroid field was dangerous for any spacecraft. One wrong calculation could result in a collision. But the asteroids also blocked sensors and weapons fire, making them ideal for a stealth approach. Enemy biocruisers are changing position, Carter said. They are moving to intercept us. Expected, Morrison said calmly. Chen, Martinez, you are up. Take out those cruisers. The Ranger and the Guardian broke formation, accelerating toward the approaching biocruisers. Their nuclear missiles lit up the darkness as they streaked toward their targets. The Valkyrie cruisers added their firepower, energy beams cutting through organic armor. Direct hits, Carter confirmed. 2 enemy cruisers destroyed, 3 still operational. The battle intensified. The Devourer ships realized they were under serious attack and began to coordinate their defense. One of the Valkyrie cruisers took heavy damage and had to withdraw. A Devourer biofighter collided with an asteroid and exploded, taking several nearby asteroids with it. Morrison kept his focus on the mission. Stevens, we need those bio-dreadnoughts neutralized. Can your fighters get close enough to target their weak points? We can try, sir, Stevens said. Give us covering fire. The Valiant and the Guardian moved forward, their railguns firing continuously. The heavy rounds created a screen of metal death that the Devourers had to navigate. Under this cover, Stevens led his squadron in a daring attack run. The fighters weaved through defensive fire, moving so fast that the bio-dreadnoughts could not track them effectively. Stevens targeted the joints where the organic armor was weakest, firing missiles directly into these vulnerable spots. Good hits, Carter shouted. One bio-dreadnought is losing structural integrity. But the second bio-dreadnought got smart. It deliberately crashed into an asteroid, creating a field of debris that scattered in all directions. Several human fighters had to break off their attack to avoid the deadly rocks. Stevens, report, Morrison called. We lost 2 fighters, sir. The rest are okay. Regrouping for another pass. Morrison made a decision. They could not afford to waste time on a prolonged fighter battle. All ships concentrate fire on that second bio-dreadnought. Hit it with everything we have. The remaining assault force unleashed a devastating barrage. Nuclear missiles, railgun rounds, and energy beams all converged on the bio-dreadnought. The creature tried to dodge, but it was too large and too slow. The combined firepower tore it apart in seconds. Path is clear, Carter said. The node is exposed. Morrison could see it now on his view screen. The hive node was massive, at least twice the size of the largest bio-dreadnought. It pulsed with a sickly light, and he could see organic appendages waving in the vacuum like tentacles. The sight was disturbing, but Morrison pushed aside his discomfort. This is it, he said. Perry, bring us in close. Carter, prepare the nuclear payload. We are going to plant charges directly on that thing. Sir, that is extremely dangerous, Perry said. We will be in range of all its weapons. I know. To it anyway. The Valiant advanced toward the node. The other ships provided covering fire, keeping the remaining Devourer defenders busy. Morrison could see weapons ports opening on the node's surface, biological cannons swiveling to target his ship. Shields to maximum, Morrison ordered. Brace for impact, the node fired. Organic projectiles slammed into the Valiant's shields, causing the ship to shudder. Warning alarms blared across the bridge, but the shields held. Get us closer, Morrison said through gritted teeth. Captain, we need someone to plant the charges manually, Carter said. The guidance systems cannot lock onto that organic surface. The charges will just bounce off. Morrison knew what that meant. Someone had to go outside in a spacesuit and physically attach the nuclear charges to the node. It was a suicide mission. I will do it, said a voice from behind Morrison. He turned to see Specialist Karen White, one of the ship's engineers. She was a tough woman in her 30s who had volunteered for every dangerous mission. White, you do not have to do this, Morrison said. With respect, sir, yes I do, White said. I know these charges better than anyone. I can get them placed faster and more accurately. and we do not have time to argue. Morrison wanted to refuse, but he knew she was right. Get suited up. Take a security team with you. White nodded and ran for the airlock. Morrison watched her go, feeling the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. He was sending someone to their possible death. "Captain, we are in position," Perry said. "Hold steady. Give White the time she needs." The next few minutes were the longest of Morrison's life. He watched through the exterior cameras as White and her team exited the airlock. They had jetpacks to maneuver in zero gravity, but they were exposed to the node's weapons and the ongoing battle. White moved with professional efficiency. She planted the first charge, then the second, working her way around the node's surface. The Devourer structure seemed to realize what was happening. Tentacles lashed out, trying to swat the humans away. One of White's team members was hit and sent spinning into space. "White status?" Morrison called. "3 charges placed, sir. Need 2 more minutes." 2 minutes felt like an eternity. Morrison watched as the Valiant's shields dropped to critical levels under sustained fire. The Guardian moved to cover them. Taking hits meant for the Valiant. Captain Martinez's voice came through, strained with effort. "We are taking heavy damage, Morrison. We cannot hold much longer." "Just a little longer, Paul. White is almost done." "Final charge placed," White announced. "We are clear." "All personnel return to the ships immediately," Morrison ordered. "All ships reverse thrust. Get us out of here." The assault force began to withdraw, still firing to cover their retreat. White and the surviving members of her team made it back to the airlock. As soon as they were inside, Morrison gave the order. "Carter, detonate the charges." "Charges armed and detonating in 3, 2, 1. The nuclear explosions were bright enough to light up the entire asteroid field. The hive node erupted in a brilliant fireball, its organic structure unable to withstand the raw power of human nuclear weapons. The shockwave rocked the nearby ships, but they were far enough away to survive. "Node destroyed," Carter confirmed, his voice filled with amazement. "It is completely gone." Morrison allowed himself to breathe. "Collins, report to Queen Zareth. Mission accomplished." But the most amazing thing happened next. Throughout the system, the Devourer ships suddenly stopped their coordinated movements. They began to drift, confused, attacking randomly instead of following a unified strategy. "Captain, look at this," Rogers said excitedly. "The Devourers have lost all coordination. They are acting like individual animals instead of a unified force." "Then they are vulnerable," Morrison said. "Contact all friendly ships. Tell them to press the attack. Hit the Devourers while they are confused." The tide of the battle shifted dramatically. The combined human-Velkari fleet tore into the disorganized Devourers. Without their hive mind coordination, the bioships were much easier to defeat. They tried to fight, but they were isolated and overwhelmed. Over the next 18 hours, the Allied fleet systematically destroyed every Devourer ship in the system. Queen Zareth led the final assault herself, her flagship fighting alongside the battered but victorious Valiant. When the last Devourer was destroyed, Morrison sat back in his command chair, exhausted. His ship was heavily damaged. He had lost good people, including 2 of White's team members. But they had won. They had actually won. "Captain, incoming transmission from Queen Zareth," Collins said. Zareth's face appeared on the screen, and for the first time since Morrison had met her, she was smiling. "Captain Morrison, you did it. The Devourers are in full retreat. Your discovery of the hive nodes has changed everything. We finally have a way to fight back effectively." "It was a team effort, Your Majesty," Morrison said. "My crew, your people working together. That is what made the difference." "Indeed," Zareth said. "And I hope you will continue to work with us. This war is not over, but for the first time I believe we can win it." Morrison smiled tiredly. "We will be there, Your Majesty. Humanity does not abandon its allies." The war against the Devourers continued for 6 more months, but everything had changed. The discovery of the hive nodes gave the Allied forces a clear strategy. Find the nodes, destroy them, and the Devourers became vulnerable. It was still dangerous work, but it was no longer hopeless. Captain Jake Morrison found himself promoted to Admiral, given command of a joint task force of human and Velkari ships. It was strange to wear the Admiral's insignia and stranger still to have Velkari officers saluting him. But the alliance had proven itself in battle, and both sides had learned to trust each other. Commander Lisa Chen was promoted to captain and given permanent command of the Ranger. She led multiple successful raids against Devourer positions. Lieutenant Kyle Stevens became Commander Stevens, and trained both human and Velkari pilots in the aggressive tactics that had proven so effective. Lieutenant Sam Rogers' research into devourer biology became the foundation for the Allied war effort. He worked with Velkari scientists, combining human and alien knowledge to understand their enemy better. Together, they developed better weapons and more effective strategies. The alliance grew beyond just humans and Velkari. Other species watched the battles and saw that the devourers could be defeated. The Thraxi, who had refused to help the Velkari initially, now joined the fight. The Mordain sent ships. Even the Council of United Worlds, which had called the Devourer invasion an internal matter, committed forces to the defense. Queen Zareth proved to be an inspiring leader during this time. She acknowledged her people's past mistakes publicly, admitting that the Velkari Empire had been too proud and too aggressive. She promised that if they survived this war, the Velkari would become better neighbors to all species. The other species respected her honesty. More importantly, they respected how she had humbled herself to ask humanity for help, and how that decision had saved billions of lives. Morrison stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the ESS Liberty. It was the largest ship humanity had ever built, constructed with help from Velkari engineers who had shared their advanced technology. The bridge was twice the size of the Valiant's, with stations for both human and Velkari crew members. Lieutenant Amy Collins, now a commander, worked at the communications station. Commander Nick Perry had become Captain Perry and served as Morrison's second-in-command. Even Lieutenant Vex, the Velkari liaison who had first served on the Valiant, had become a permanent member of Morrison's staff. "Admiral, we are approaching the target system," Perry reported. "This should be the last major Devourer stronghold in this sector." Morrison studied the tactical display. Intelligence reported a massive hive node in this system, possibly the largest one discovered so far. If they could destroy it, the remaining Devourers in this entire region would lose coordination. "How many ships do we have?" Morrison asked. 42, sir," Vex answered. 20 human ships, 15 Velkari, and 7 from other allied species. It is the largest fleet ever assembled under unified command. Morrison felt the weight of responsibility. 42 ships, thousands of crew members, all depending on his decisions. A year ago, he had been a simple captain with one ship. Now he commanded fleets and made strategic decisions that affected entire star systems. "Send the attack plan to all ships," Morrison ordered. "We move in 1 hour." The battle plan was complex but had been refined through months of experience. Reconnaissance drones would go in first, mapping the defenses. Then strike teams would attack from multiple angles, dividing the Devourer defenders. Finally, the main fleet would push through and destroy the hive node. As the hour passed, Morrison found himself thinking about how much had changed. He thought about the first time he had seen Queen Zareth's desperate plea, about the decision to help strangers who had never been kind to humanity. That decision had changed everything. "Admiral, all ships report ready," Collins said. "Begin the operation," Morrison ordered. The battle lasted 3 days. It was the largest engagement of the entire war. The Devourers fought desperately to protect their hive node, throwing everything they had at the Allied fleet. But the Alliance held together. Human aggression combined with Velkari shields and weapons, Thraxi fighters provided excellent reconnaissance. Mordain ships had powerful long-range weapons that could hit targets from safe distances. On the second day, Captain Chen's Ranger took critical damage while protecting a wounded Velkari cruiser. Morrison ordered the Liberty to provide cover while Chen's crew made emergency repairs. It was moments like these that defined the Alliance. They were not just fighting alongside each other anymore. They were protecting each other. Specialist Karen White, who had survived the first hive node mission, led another dangerous operation to plant charges. This time, she had volunteers from 3 different species on her team. They worked together despite different biologies and different languages, united by a common purpose. When the hive node exploded, the effect was even more dramatic than before. Throughout the system, Devourers stopped fighting. Some tried to flee, others simply shut down, drifting in space like dead things. The Allied fleet destroyed them methodically, taking no pleasure in it but recognizing the necessity. "Admiral, we are receiving multiple reports," Collins said, her voice excited. "Devourer forces across 6 systems have lost coordination. They are retreating toward the galactic rim. Are we pursuing?" Perry asked. Morrison thought carefully. "No, let them go. We have pushed them out of inhabited space. That is enough." The final victory came not with a dramatic battle but with silence. The Devourers retreated to the edge of the galaxy and then simply disappeared. Some scientists believed they had returned to whatever dimension they came from. Others thought they had found easier prey elsewhere. Morrison did not care much about the answer. What mattered was that they were gone. 3 months after the last Devourer ship was destroyed, Morrison returned to Earth. He had not been home in over a year. When his shuttle landed at the spaceport, he saw a huge crowd waiting. Cameras flashed. People cheered. He felt overwhelmed by the attention. But then he saw Lucy pushing through the crowd, his 8-year-old daughter running toward him. He knelt down and hugged her tightly, and suddenly all the battles and all the danger seemed worth it. He had protected her future. He had kept Earth safe. "Daddy, you are a hero," Lucy said, her eyes wide with excitement. "I just did my job, sweetheart," Morrison said. "A lot of people did." The next day, the signing ceremony took place at the United Nations building in New York. Morrison wore his dress uniform, feeling uncomfortable with all the formality. He preferred the bridge of a ship to political ceremonies. But this was important. Queen Zareth arrived with a delegation of Velkhari officials. She had brought gifts for Earth: advanced technology, medical knowledge, and detailed star charts. But more important than any physical gift was the treaty itself. Admiral Helen Brooks, who had authorized Morrison's original mission to help the Velkhari, stood at the podium. She was older now, her hair completely gray, but her voice was strong. "Today we celebrate not just the end of a war but the beginning of a new era," Brooks said. "The Terran-Velkhari alliance represents more than a military partnership. It represents a commitment to mutual defense, shared knowledge, and lasting friendship between our peoples." Queen Zareth spoke next. "The Velkhari people owe Earth a debt that can never be fully repaid. When we were desperate, when no one else would answer, humanity came to our aid. Admiral Morrison and his brave crews fought alongside us, bled with us, and helped us survive our darkest hour. We will never forget this." She paused, her dark eyes scanning the crowd. "But more than gratitude, what we feel is respect. Humanity showed us what it means to be truly civilized. It is not about having the most advanced technology or the largest empire. It is about having the courage to help others, even when it is not in your immediate interest. The Velkhari have much to learn from Earth." The treaty was signed by Admiral Brooks and Queen Zareth. It included provisions for mutual defense, meaning that if either Earth or the Velkhari Empire was attacked, the other would respond. It included technology sharing, allowing both civilizations to benefit from each other's knowledge. And it included open borders, allowing humans and Velkhari to travel freely between their worlds. Morrison watched the signing and felt proud. This was what they had fought for. Not just survival, but a chance to build something better. After the ceremony, Morrison met with Queen Zareth privately. They sat in a quiet room overlooking the city, just the two of them and their translators. "Admiral Morrison," Zareth said, "I wanted to thank you personally. Without you, my people would have died. Our entire civilization would have ended." "You would have found a way," Morrison said. "You are survivors, perhaps, but it is more likely we would have fallen." She looked out the window at the human city below. "Your people are remarkable. You have been in space for barely 20 years, yet you have already made such a difference. I believe humanity will be one of the great civilizations of the galaxy." "We are learning from you," Morrison said. "Your technology, your knowledge, it is helping us grow. And your courage, your innovation, your willingness to take risks, these things are teaching us," Zareth replied. "The Velkhari became too comfortable, too arrogant. We forgot what it means to be humble. You have reminded us." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Zareth asked, "What will you do now, Admiral? Will you continue in the military?" Morrison thought about it. "I do not know. Part of me wants to retire, to spend time with my daughter, but there is still work to do. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Someone needs to keep watch." "Then perhaps you would consider a new position," Zareth said. "The Alliance needs a military commander, someone who understands both human and Velkhari forces, someone who has proven themselves in combat and in diplomacy. I am offering you the position of Supreme Commander of the Allied Defense Forces." Morrison was surprised. "Your Majesty, that is a tremendous honor, but I am just a human. There are Velkhari officers with far more experience." "Experience is not everything," Zareth said. "You have something more important. You have the trust of both our peoples, and you have shown that you can make the hard decisions when necessary." She smiled. "Besides, the other allied species have already approved your appointment. You are the unanimous choice." Morrison thought about his daughter, about the quiet life he could have on Earth. Then he thought about the billions of people across dozens of worlds who needed protection. He thought about the alliance they had built, fragile but growing stronger every day. "I accept," Morrison said. The years that followed were challenging but rewarding. Admiral Morrison led the Allied Defense Forces through several smaller conflicts, always working to maintain peace and protect civilian populations. The alliance expanded as more species joined, drawn by the example of human-Velkari cooperation. Captain Chen became an admiral herself, commanding the Velkari sector fleet. Commander Stevens founded a joint military academy where human and alien pilots trained together. Lieutenant Rogers won multiple scientific awards for his continuing research on xenobiology. Specialist Karen White eventually became Colonel White and led special operations teams composed of soldiers from multiple species. The team members she had lost during the Hive Node mission were honored with memorials on both Earth and Velkara Prime. 10 years after the war ended, Morrison attended a ceremony at the site where the first Hive Node had been destroyed. A monument stood there now, a joint human-Velkari construction showing members of both species fighting side by side. Lucy was with him, now 18 years old and wearing the uniform of a cadet at the new Joint Military Academy. She had chosen to follow in her father's footsteps, much to his mixed feelings of pride and worry. "Dad, do you ever regret it?" Lucy asked as they looked at the monument. "Answering that call for help? Everything that came after?" Morrison thought about the question. He thought about the friends he had lost in battle. He thought about the years away from Earth, away from his daughter. He thought about the weight of command and the difficult decisions he had made. "No," he said finally. "I do not regret it. We did the right thing. And look at what came from it. An entire galaxy working together, protecting each other. That is worth any sacrifice," Lucy smiled. "That is what I thought you would say." They stood together in silence, father and daughter looking at the stars. Somewhere out there on dozens of worlds, humans and aliens lived and worked together. The alliance that had started with a desperate plea and a brave decision had grown into something permanent and meaningful. Morrison thought about Queen Zareth's original message, the one that had started everything. She had pleaded for help, fearing no one would respond. But someone had responded. Humanity had answered. And in doing so, they had proven that hope was never truly lost. The galaxy was safer now because people had chosen courage over fear, compassion over indifference. Morrison had just been one person making one decision, but that decision had rippled outward, changing everything. He thought about the future Lucy would inherit. It would still have challenges and dangers, but it would also have the alliance, the friendship between species, the knowledge that they were not alone. "Come on," Morrison said to his daughter. "We have a ceremony to attend. Admiral Chen is receiving an award." They walked together back to their shuttle. Above them, ships from a dozen different species patrolled the space lanes, keeping watch, keeping the peace. The alliance was strong. The future was bright. And it had all started because when someone called for help, humanity had answered. The story of the alien queen and her army who pleaded for help, fearing no one would respond, became legend across the galaxy. It was taught in schools on 100 worlds. It was told to children as a bedtime story. It reminded everyone that courage existed even in the youngest species, and that compassion could change the course of history. Morrison knew he would eventually retire, that new leaders would take his place, but the alliance would continue. It had become bigger than any one person. It had become a symbol of what the galaxy could be when different species worked together. As their shuttle launched back toward the Liberty, Morrison looked out at the stars and smiled. They had done something good. They had made a difference, and that was all anyone could really ask for.